Well, welcome to your update for development and other gaming news, historical board gaming. I'm not the only developer out there, but I'm happy to share the things that I'm working on. So before I get into this mess that you're probably looking at on my Global 14 IPP chart, let me just give you a couple other updates. Just talked to Doug this morning. As you know, Doug is very busy in the movement of his warehouse, and he told me that the CSA expansion, everything's ready to go. It's just a matter of getting it organized and put on the web. So I don't know if that means a week or not. It could easily. So please be patient with that. And then Global Empires, which I'll be quite frank with many of you, I've enjoyed Global Empires far more than many of the other games that I've played recently, and maybe that's just because of its newness or the innovative mixing of World War I and World War II. But I am happy to be working with Brian and Tim and others on the development of our next generation of Global 14. And so what you're looking at is certainly not anything final. So please, your comments are welcome, but we're not even close to getting done. This might take us a year in effort. It's already been about 3 months. Brian and I have talked. Of course, all of your comments through Discord and other channels have been very useful for making updates, minor updates with FAQs and whatnot. There's always something, especially with the random events. There's another sequence of random events that was never experienced in 4 years of play testing, and voila, we've got to make a clarification. But in the meantime, we came up with several things that we thought should be added to the game, would help enhance it. And so I'm going to walk you through some of those. What you see on my IPP chart is just a big old mess because it helps me keep one particular thing in mind, and I'll tell you what that is in a moment. I do want to let everybody know we are committed to no map updates. We are committed to no map updates. So, and as few player aid updates as we can get away with. Like as of right now, I'm not sure that the tech chart will update. The IPP chart, almost a definite. There's some things that Global 36 put on their IPP chart that we should put on ours, such as the peacetime income, the wartime income, reminders on when tanks are must be developed, etc. And that's why I've got all these units sitting there, and I'll explain what those are in just a minute. So first of all, a doctrine that's going to be introduced, and it may just be a rule because it's not necessarily a technology, but we do want to reward those who focus on the doctrines that enable the breakthrough of trench lines, hurricane bombardment, armored vehicles, fighter evolution, and improved logistics, so that if you have the related units, infantry, trench, tank, artillery, fighters, then you are able to extend your combat rounds. And so that will be added to the rules. Obviously comes into play somewhere around 1917, 1918, like it should. The next thing is commanders, and you'll see all over my map, we've got commanders. I love the commanders expansion, I won't lie. It's a big push for me. But you also see commanders sitting on my build charts here. They're all over the place. Those are the commanders for when units go to war with a major power, but they already have a couple commanders on there. The commanders must be tied to the number of major factories that you have. It's because they have to be supported. And then they have to be supported by units that are providing them the visual, the understanding of the battlefield, whether that's cavalry or airplanes. And so if, for example, a cavalry or a commander is supported by a factory and he has a cavalry unit that is providing him the battlefield understanding. That cavalry unit's not participating in combat, but the commander will provide the positive benefits for attack or defense depending on what they're actually doing. And that, of course, will limit the number of commanders. So if you're Russia and you start with 3 commanders, but you only have 1 major factory, you could only have 1 effective commander at any one time. So every calendar year, you'd be limited to just that 1 commander unless you build more major factories. And we thought that that was a nice balance. Even France, Britain, everybody's going to have to think about that with respect to number of commanders versus number of major factories that they have. We're looking at adding trucks. I have trucks out there on the battlefield. There's some starting trucks. They will be a little bit different than, they're not motorized infantry. They'll be able to move units. They'll be able to move your allies, and not through that arduous system that you're used to with Axis and Allies and transports. But you'll only be able to use it once per calendar turn. So let's just say you have a truck in Paris and you want to move a unit to the front rapidly 2 spaces in the attack, not in a non-combat move. You could do that with your truck. It could be any unit. So it would be American on the American turn or French on the French turn. But whatever turn it's used on, it's done for the calendar turn. So we're happy to introduce trucks. Doug already has some nice trucks 3D printed for that. We're looking at battle cruisers. Doug already has some battle cruisers out there. I will show you some of those when I turn my map. Pretty much the same attributes that you have with battle cruisers in World War II, Global 36. Special units. That's what you see here. This is special units and when they get put on the map. Now, I'll be honest with you. Most of them are colonials and trench fighters. They are balanced. British, French, German, Italian, and Austrian. We thought about special attributes. For example, the British didn't bring colonial troops to Europe, but the French did. There are other differentiations we could make, but we thought, at the same time, it's probably better that we keep the variances in the rules limited. So this is when they are introduced to the game, when they'll be placed, and that's enough all by itself. I think it'll be nice. We do have, I am missing one. Where do I see it on there? No, the Ottoman. I put it on the build card instead of where it belongs. But the Ottomans have a 1914 fighter that's going to be placed when they go to war. Oh, that's why I didn't put it on there. I put it on their build chart because it's when they go to war. So it's like a reserve. The Americans have a reserve too. Now, Doug may choose to create special markers for them. I don't know. For example, the Japanese have the Provisional South Sea Island Defense Force when they take islands. The West African Frontier Force for Great Britain, etc. So maybe an opportunity for special markers, maybe not. Also, we have artillery, a couple artillery units. You see there on the edge of my German card. It's to remind me he doesn't automatically get placed, but that's the Paris gun. Germans aren't able to build that till 1917. These are rail mounted, however, they are not they're not trains. They're not train artillery. So they can't move as far because they do take a lot longer time to set up. But that Paris gun had a range of 81 miles, lobbing 8 and 9 inch shells that weighed 234 pounds. But they aren't able to build that until 1917. Whereas the French are able to build a 1912 railway gun. In fact, we put one on the table to start with. Another item that we're going to introduce is artillery restriction. Artillery in World War I, quite frankly, was severely limited. Either there was never enough, and when they did think they had enough, and they would stockpile it for months in advance of a major offensive, when they did have enough, it would damage the guns. They would actually melt their guns down. So the artillery restriction is simply this. You could only produce as many artillery units per turn as you have major factories. So if you're the Italians, that's 1. If you're French, that's 2, etc. And that includes Lend-Lease. So if you're receiving from the Americans a Lend-Lease, that counts, or any other means. So I just want, we've got that restriction in mind. We think it will help normalize some of the play. I don't know about you, but when, 3 nations all Lend-Lease and artillery to the Italians or even the Russians or whoever, it's just a little unrealistic that all of a sudden, in one calendar year, the Italians would go from 2 artillery to 6 on the front line, and it would just be overwhelming to the Austrians or the Ottomans to the British, etc. So I think that will be a nice restriction that is historically accurate as well as balances gameplay. Now you see here this tiny blimp. It's like a little blimp. We're introducing a airship type called a recon patrol blimp. When I turn this over to the map, you'll see that the Russians have one. They start the game. This is a 1914 setup, by the way, when I turn it over. And you'll see that we've changed the ratio of airships and Zeppelins so that there's a lot more starting Zeppelins and airships on the map. And they have a nice combat capability. Something let me go ahead and do the old switcheroo here. Something that we're toying around with is a restriction on British entry into World War I, that they would be delayed. The only reason that the British entered as quickly as they did was the German violation of Belgium neutrality, which was guaranteed in an 1839 treaty. I recently spent a lot of time researching into this. Some of it was I do some substitute teaching with a high school. We had some discussion about all the events that led up to World War I and the enormously entangling treaties that existed in the 100 years prior to World War I, including this 1839 Treaty of London guaranteeing Belgium's neutrality. So Britain will start with their peacetime income of 4 rather than 35, whereas the Germans start with 35. And the way we're offsetting that is a mechanism called Kitchener's Army. So should the Germans violate Belgium's neutrality and attack Belgium on their first turn, while Britain only has 4 IPP to start the game with, they will be able to place this thing called Kitchener's Army. Should Germany not attack Belgium, then now, of course, attacking Belgium and attacking Britain at the same time will allow them to employ their submarines and make other impacts, maybe make attacks down in Africa, etc. Should they not do that, then Britain will go to war at their collect income phase on turn 1. So they'll collect their 35 IPP and have the Kitchener's Army in place. And Kitchener's Army is fairly robust, kind of makes up the gap in that first 31 IPP that they don't start the game with. But the difference is they won't be able to place them until turn 2. And that includes manpower considerations. So there's a lot for the Germans and the British to think about with respect to Kitchener's Army and Belgium's neutrality. Q-ships. Q-ships, we're going to increase their capability to a defense of 2 instead of 1. Q-ships were, when the Germans observed cruiser rules, they had to be on, surfaced and engaged with the transport ship in question, and the transport ship would often have, especially the British, would often have artillery that would be covered, and when the surfaced submarine would come and, you know, announce to the ship that they were going to torpedo them, the British would surprise attack them. And so we thought that Q ships should have a much greater defense capability, and that might give the Germans more thought towards unrestricted submarine warfare, and maybe we'd see more activity in that direction. We're going to change the purchase of upgrading fighters, and we're also going to change the strategic bomber costs. We want to get more of those in. And then also, while it's still showing here in beautiful Ottoman territory, I've got this elite guards unit. He's glued to the ship. So, but that's going to change from a guards infantry to a guards camel. Now you go, guards camel, that sounds really weird. It is, sort of. But the, I think it'll just provide, somewhat like a Cossack, provide an interesting twist to battle in the desert. So otherwise, what do you see on my table? You see that Russian recon blimp. You see a couple German Zeppelins. These are the French have 2 airships. The British have 2 airships and a recon patrol. The Italians have an airship. That's right. The Italians had an airship. And then also in a couple places, here's one of them. We've got a British cruiser, battle cruiser on the board sitting next to a regular cruiser. So battle cruisers are in the game. They move fast, but they don't take a good punch. They can hit hard, but they can't take a punch, not very well. So they one shot and they're gone. There are some other things that are surprises that we're not going to reveal right now, and we are paying attention to the impact of random events. The last time Tim and I played, we had the most amazing set of random events that caused us to back up and think more than once about the sequence of things and who was at war and what this meant for the British delay and etc. So really looking forward to this. As you can see, the game starts with airships. I got a truck back here in Austria. I got another one sitting over here in England. Got more. These are air bases. I'm not sure. Let's see. Kind of got it right there. You know, they're little white blimp air bases. But anyways, we'll be working on this. Look forward to getting it out to the community. I don't think it's going to be disruptive to the balance. We are balancing each and everything. So if we decide that we don't want to implement a particular rule, then it won't disrupt the balance of the game should we leave it out, or maybe it becomes part of an expansion. But we do think all of this will be incorporated in the new rule set, and we are excited about the couple things that we are keeping secret from you. And of course, I'm also looking forward to the things that should be published within the next 30 days. So look for the CSA expansion, which is going to be added to the website. Global Empires is going to print, and then will be added to the website. And this update to the rules, along with a kind of an upgrade kit of the additional airships and recon patrol blimps and battle cruisers and such, would go on sale, I don't know, end of the year, beginning of next year, maybe sooner, but you know, let's not be too optimistic. Enjoy your gaming summer.